If you love me, please don't judge me. Got my hands tied, the power's above me. Don't shoot the messenger, I'm just a puppet here. If you wanna place blame, then look to the puppeteer. Family, fortune, envy, jealousy, privilege, passed on, legacy, secret, sabotage, borderline, felony, suicide, subtract, selfish, pedigree, yeah.
How's it going, everybody? It's C-RadTV back here in our video. So, of course, it's time to go into part 5 of the What If NASCAR Had F1 Points series. So, the last time in this series, we covered the 1980s, and we learned that quite a number of things would have changed or been different had NASCAR had F1 points in the 1980s. And in this part, we're going to go through the 1990s. One of the biggest popular decades for NASCAR, and see what would have changed if NASCAR had F1 points in the 1990s. So, of course, on the screen, I will have the point systems that were used in the F1 used in the 90s. In 1991, the format would change. It would still be the top 6 finishers would get points, but now, from 1991 on, a race win would be worth 10 points. So then from 1991 on, a race, most points you can gain or lose in a race is 10 points. As this was, of course, put a quote, bigger emphasis on winning and finishing well. And before we jump into this, let me just stress out that once again, this is just a hypothetical scenario. I know everyone would have raced differently had this format been in play. This is just for fun. So now, with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead, let's jump right into it. So 1990, the whole year was all about Dale Earnhardt. Dale Earnhardt was just flat out dominant, was flat out fast, was very consistent throughout the year. Mark Martin tried to keep up with him the best he could, but just Mark Martin had no answers for him. And Mark Martin at the end of the year just couldn't be consistent when it mattered the most. And Dale Earnhardt would end up pulling away from Mark Martin. And Dale Earnhardt would end up cruising away to the 1990 championship. So under this format, this would be Dale Earnhardt's 3rd championship. So 1991, we had a very close 3-man battle for the championship between Dale Earnhardt, Davey Allison, and Harry Gant. Now, for the longest time in this battle fight, it did not look like Harry Gant was even going to come close to the championship battle. Then late in the season, around the end of August, start of September, Harry Gant would go on a massive tear, winning 4 races in a row, becoming again the nickname Mr. September. This would also put him in the books as the oldest winner in NASCAR history at around 52 years of age. And Harry Gant would then be consistent the rest of the year. He will also take advantage of Davey Allison and Dale Earnhardt having issues and struggling. And Harry Gant would end up finding his way back into the championship. So this pile fight, it would end up going down to the season finale between Harry Gant, Allison, and Earnhardt. All 3 entered separated by 6 points. Harry and Davey entered tied for the points lead entering Atlanta. So pretty much between Harry and Davey, whoever finished the highest could win the championship. Dale Earnhardt would need to win the race and hope that Davey and Harry don't score points. Well, in the finale at Atlanta, Davey Allison's team would struggle and run around mid-pack most of the race, and Davey would wind up finishing 17th. Dale Earnhardt just didn't have enough speed at the end to get to the win, and Dale Earnhardt would finish 5th, which would not be enough for Earnhardt to win the championship. But Harry Gant would do everything he would need to secure the title. Harry Gant would end up finishing 4th in the season finale in Atlanta, and that would be enough for Harry Gant to edge out Davey Allison by 3 points. So Harry Gant would win the 1991 championship and one of the biggest upsets in NASCAR history. And also under this format, this would make Harry Gant the oldest champion in NASCAR history at 52 years of age. With Harry Gant proving under this format that, for some people, age is just a number. So throughout 1992, this was mainly a two-man championship battle between Bill Elliott and Davey Allison. Now, Mark Martin, Darrell Waltrip, Alan Kulwicki, and Ernie Irvan and all them, they all made a solid case for the championship too, but they all failed to be consistent when it mattered the most. And sadly, this was one of those championship battles where not everyone could be a part of it. So it would come down to the season finale between Elliott and Allison. And of course, the 1992 season finale in Atlanta, it would still be one of the biggest races in NASCAR history, because that race would end up being the final career start for Richard Petty, his final race in the sport. And it was also the first career start for Jeff Gordon. So it was that one time in NASCAR history where Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt, and Jeff Gordon all shared the exact same track at the exact same time. And like the finale in real life, this would have a close championship battle. The difference is this wouldn't be a 5-man championship that we saw in real life. It would only be a 2-man title fight. So in the finale, Davey Allison would enter with a 7-point lead over Bill Elliott. So how it was shaped up is that Bill Elliott would have to win the race, and he would need Davey Allison to finish 5th or worse to lock up the championship. Davey would need to finish at least 4th or better, or he would need Bill Elliott to finish 2nd or worse to win the championship. So in the finale, Davey Allison would enter controlling his own destiny. Well, early in the race, Davey Allison would end up in a crash in the midfield, which would look like it ultimately ended his championship bid. But keep in mind, Davey could still win the title after that wreck if Bill Elliott finished 2nd or worse. So after that wreck, Bill Elliott knew that all he had to do to win the championship was win the race. So of course in the race, you had the epic close battle for the win between Bill Elliott and Alan Kulwicki. Both of them were neck and neck throughout the race, but in the end, Bill Elliott would pull away from Kulwicki in the closing laps, and Bill Elliott would end up winning the season finale in his home track in Atlanta. And Bill Elliott would end up capturing the 1992 championship over Davey Allison by 3 points. And Bill Elliott gets to celebrate this title at his home track. So under this format, this would be Bill Elliott's 2nd championship. And it would actually be the longest gap in between championships under this format at 7 years. So Bill Elliott would win the 1992 title. So of course, 1993, this was a season that was really marred in tragedy. Like early in the year, you had Alan Kulwicki pass away in a plane crash. And then around mid-season, you would have Davey Allison tragically pass away in a helicopter crash. And of course, Davey Allison, he was having a really solid season before that tragedy struck. So you had 2 drivers pass away during the season. And for Davey Allison, Davey still remains and for Davey, he would be one of the biggest what-ifs. Because for Davey Allison, for Davey Allison, his what-if would be, if he was still alive, how many more race wins and championships would he stolen from the likes of Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt and company? Yeah, and actually, spoiler alert, despite the passing Davey Allison, he would still finish inside the top 10 in points because he had a solid gap ahead of guys in like 10th and 11th. So despite the tragedy, Davey would still finish in the top 10. I guess one way to honor him, I guess. Because Davey was able to build a big enough gap throughout the season before that tragedy. Like I said, Davey was having a really solid season up to that point. But despite that, we still had a championship battle to go through. Ernie Irvan, I believe, would end up taking over the ride at the 28 ride by around mid-season after that Davy's tragic passing. But despite that, the championship battle would still go on. It would be a two-man battle for the championship between Rusty Wallace and Dale Earnhardt. Just Dale Earnhardt, he would fall apart late in the season against Rusty. And Rusty just had the speed and the consistency when it mattered, and Earnhardt didn't. And in the final races of the season, Rusty Wallace would pull away from Dale Earnhardt, and Rusty would end up cruising to what would be his third championship under this format. But the one thing that this championship battle would be remembered for was the season finale at Atlanta, when both Rusty and Dale would do Polish victory laps to pay tribute to Davey and Alan Kulwicki, along with having both Davey and Alan flags outside their windows, respectively. So in the 1994 season, this was shaping up to be a three-man championship battle between Dale Earnhardt, Rusty Wallace, and Ernie Irvan, where Ernie Irvan was right with Rusty and Dale, until tragedy would once again strike as Ernie Irvan would end up suffering his career-threatening injury in a practice crash before the second Michigan race, and that crash would force Ernie Irvan to sit out the remainder of the season. So that crash would eliminate Ernie Irvan from the championship battle. So it ended up becoming down to a two-man battle between Rusty and Dale. Pretty much a rematch from last year. But like last year, Dale Earnhardt would once again fail to be consistent when it mattered the most. Rusty was able to perform well when it mattered the most. And Rusty Wallace would end up locking up the championship over Dale with around a race to go in the season. Now, Dale would finish second in the season finale while Rusty struggled in the finale at Atlanta. But all that did was just make the championship look a lot closer than it actually was. And of course, for Ernie Irvan, he will still be one of the biggest what-ifs. Another big what-if. What if Ernie Irvan never had that career-threatening accident at Michigan? Could he have won the 1994 championship over Rusty and Dale? And the truth is, we will never truly know. Actually, real quick, before we move on to the 1995 season, I actually made a little mistake there in the last part. Actually, that championship battle between Rusty and Dale would go down to the season finale. But Dale would be in a position after Rusty's struggles where Dale would have to win the season finale to win the championship. And Dale would end up finishing second to Mark Martin. So Dale would have fallen short by one position to win the championship. And also under this format, that would have been Rusty's fourth championship. And it would be the second time in his career that Rusty went back-to-back. Of course, becoming the second driver to do that, joining Richard Petty as the only two drivers to win back-to-back championships on two separate occasions. But anyway, with that typo and mistake out of the way and correcting it, let's move on to the 1995 championship. And the 1995 championship, well, we all know this championship pretty well. It was the Jeff Gordon versus Dale Earnhardt championship battle, the Dale-Jeff rivalry. Of course, for me, I never was born in this rivalry. I was born in 1998, so I never got to grow up in this rivalry. But from what I heard, it was mainly a rivalry where Jeff and Dale respected each other. It was just one where the fan bases hated each other, because in this rivalry, if you were a fan of Dale Earnhardt, you weren't allowed to root for Jeff Gordon. And if you were a fan of Jeff Gordon, you weren't allowed to root for Dale Earnhardt, and so on. So, it was mainly a rivalry where the fan bases hated each other. But this would be a very close championship battle between Jeff and Dale, but Dale Earnhardt, he would fail to be consistent when it mattered the most. Jeff was able to do very well and had a lot of speed throughout the year. And just Jeff, in his third season, would not be intimidated by the Intimidator. And Jeff Gordon would lock up the championship over Dale with a race to go in the season. Now, Dale would win the season finale, and Jeff would struggle and finish 14 laps down in Atlanta. But all Dale's win in the finale did would just make the championship look a lot closer than it actually was. So 1996, it was all about Jeff Gordon. Like, Jeff Gordon was just in a league of his own in 1996. The only one that could match him in terms of consistency was his teammate Terry Labonte. But Terry just didn't have the speed to win a lot of races like Jeff did. The only one that had the speed to do it was Dale Jarrett as well, but Dale just didn't have the consistency when it mattered the most. Just Jeff Gordon was in his own zip code in 1996, and Jeff Gordon, he would end up cruising to his second consecutive championship in 1996. And now here come all the, oh, Jeff Gordon got robbed of another championship crowd down in the comments section for this video, and why this video might get a couple dislikes or two. All I say to them is, hey, as a lifelong Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson fan, I feel your pain as well. So in 1997, you would have a close championship battle between Jeff Gordon and Dale Jarrett, where Jeff and Dale were matched in terms of consistency and speed. Both of them were neck and neck throughout the season. But at certain points in the year, Dale Jarrett would just fail to be consistent when it mattered the most. Jeff Gordon would take full advantage of it. And Jeff Gordon, he would end up locking up the championship over Dale Jarrett with around 3 races to go. He would lock it up at Talladega, of all places. Now, Dale Jarrett would have a solid finish to the season. But all that solid finish did, once again, he just made the championship look a lot closer than it actually was. So under this format, Jeff Gordon would cruise to his 3rd consecutive championship, and Jeff under this format would be the 3rd driver to win at least 3 consecutive titles, joining Darrell Waltrip and Cale Yarborough as the only 2 drivers to do that. So 1998, it was all about Jeff Gordon. Like, Jeff Gordon just completely dominated the field in 1998. Like, he tied the modern era record for most wins in the season with 13 wins, tying Richard Petty's, I think it's his 1975 season, I want to say. Yeah, it's 1975 season of 13 wins in the modern era. Like, Jeff Gordon, he was on a whole nother level of consistency and speed. Like, nobody had an answer for him. Well, the only driver that was even remotely close to having an answer for him was Mark Martin, which Mark had a really solid season with 7 wins. But Mark's speed and consistency, it was still no match for Jeff Gordon in 1998. Like, Jeff Gordon was just in his own zip code in 98. Jeff Gordon would end up easily cruising to his 4th consecutive championship in 1998. So under this format, Jeff Gordon would become the 2nd driver to win 4 consecutive championships, joining Darrell Waltrip as the only drivers to do that, and Jeff Gordon will also join the elusive 4-time Champions Club, which was actually pretty popular under this format. So for the 1999 season, I'm going to first give a shout out to Black Flags Matter, as he already covered this season in one of his videos here, where he also did a video on this season as well, so I'll give him a shout out too. I'll leave a link to that video in the description down below, where he went fully in detail and covered the entire season of 1999 under the F1 points format. And yeah, he did a very good job going in detail about it, so I'll give a shout out to him about it. He was actually one of the main inspirations in terms of me doing this series. So yeah, I'll give a shout out to him. And yeah, there we go. So yeah, that's just that there. So I'll just give a brief rundown on this championship battle since Black Flags Matter already covered it. So in terms of the championship battle, it was mainly a 3-man battle between Dale Jarrett, Bobby Labonte, and Jeff Gordon. Jeff Byrne and Mark Martin were also part of this battle too, but both of them would fall out as both of them would fail to be consistent when it mattered the most. This would end up going down to the final race between Wabani, Gordon, and Jarrett. But in the finale at Atlanta, Jeff Gordon, he would suffer an engine failure midway through the race, which would officially eliminate Jeff Gordon from the championship hunt, ending his championship streak at 4. So Jeff came that close to winning 5 consecutive championships. Yep, and now here come all the, oh, Gordon got robbed of another championship crowd in the comments again. So in the way the race was shaping up at the end with Jeff Gordon out, it was shaping up between Wabani and Jarrett, who were both up front throughout the race, that whoever won the race would win the championship. So yeah, Wabani and Jarrett would duel each other for the win, but Bobby Wabani would pull away from Jarrett at the end. And then Dale Jarrett would end up finishing third as Jeremy Mayfield would pass Dale Jarrett in the closing laps. And Bobby Wabani would win the season finale at Atlanta, and that would be enough for Bobby Wabani to win the 1999 championship. So Wabani would win his first championship a year sooner under this format than he did in real life. So Bobby Wabani would be your 1999 champion, and this would be Joe Gibbs' first championship in NASCAR. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up here for this part. Yeah, this part, it went a little longer than I thought it would. This, I believe, is actually the longest part in the series. Mainly though, that's because there was actually a lot to talk about in the 90s. There was a lot of things that happened in this decade, a lot of close championship battles. And yeah, there was actually a lot of things that would have changed in the 90s if at NASCAR did F1 points compared to what happened in real life. Like, in terms of this part, this part had the most title changes. Like, under this format, we would see 6 title changes. Those being 1991, 1992, 1993, 1994, 1996, and 1999. And under this format, in the 90s, Dale Earnhardt would only have 3 championships. Rusty Wallace would have 4 championships. Bill Elliott would have 2 titles. Harry Gant would win a championship and pull off one of the biggest upsets in NASCAR history and would become the oldest champion in the process at 52 years of age. And Jeff Gordon would win 4 straight championships. Also, Bobby Wabani gets his first championship a year sooner than he did in real life. And also gives Joe Gibbs Racing their first championship a year sooner than they did in real life. So yeah, just a lot was there to talk about. He also had a lot of close championship bouts. Like, in terms of championship bouts that went down to the season finale, there was 4 championship battles that went down to the season finale in the 90s, which were 1991, 1992, 1994, and 1999. So yeah, there were some great battles, and I think a lot of great moments would have been produced in the 90s if NASCAR had F1 points. So yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this part. So the next part of this series is going to be the 2000s decade, the turn of the millennium. And I think it's going to be a lot more competitive then in the 2000s than it was in the 1990s. So more than likely, expect the 2000s part to be about as long as this part, because there's more than likely going to be a lot to talk about in the 2000s. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me. That's all I got to say. The next part of this series, it'll be up when, how long it will take to get it up, it depends on how fast I do my research and get everything done. But yeah, anyway, that's all I got to say. I hope everyone's a great day, and yeah, peace out. And if you want to check out Black Flags Matters video on the 1999 season of NASCAR at F1 points, like I said, link in the description, make sure you check it out. Peace.